Buenas tardes y bienvenidos. Thank you for tuning in to the Latin American Student Union's radio show Levels. My name is Amiya Castro and I am the Levels and Publications Coordinator for LASU. I will also be one of your hosts for the evening. We have some amazing people joining us for tonight's show. I will let them introduce themselves.
Hey y'all, my name is Natalie and I'm currently a senior advisor for LASU.
Hey y'all, I'm Jorwell. I'm currently an alumni for LASU.
Something like
So if you're listening, we would love to have you join the discussion, so call us live at 607-777-2137. And if you're shy, just DM us on Instagram at LASU_1969.
Yes, I'm so excited for today's show, but first, let's talk a little bit about LHM. How was kickoff?
Kickoff was fire. I love kickoff.
It was so amazing, and Denise, she's just an amazing person in general. Like, E-Board was able to talk to her before the kickoff event, and like she was so insightful on so many different things.
So for those that don't know, Denise was actually one of the highest ranking women within the Young Lords Party, which is really cool, right? And like she was also in the Black Panther Party.
Yeah. So she gave some pretty good insight. So after that, we kind of like continued with our week with Pie and E-Board member. How was that, Amiya?
I got violated. Like I can still smell the whipped cream.
How is it that like I didn't get pied, but I smell like whipped cream?
It was just everywhere. People were pieing us so hard that the whipped cream just went everywhere.
And all I could think about was like, the spine can't have anything on it. So I was like cleaning the tiles on the spine. I was like, am I wilding?
Which is funny, you're cleaning like the outside floor.
Right?
Of like
concrete. Yeah, so it's a mess, but whatever. I guess moving on from LASU, have y'all seen that pic of Rihanna?
The one that everyone's sharing?
Yeah, so it's like, it looks like she has like a bump. Maybe my sister's bloated. Like, y'all think she's pregnant?
She is pregnant. She is pregnant.
Is she just
and
bloated?
I am the father.
Oh, okay.
Interesting how that works.
That's my theory. I don't know how it happened, but I'm definitely the father.
Wow. No, I don't know. Maybe. Do you think?
Honestly, my good sis Rihanna, she probably is, and you know she deserves it. She deserves to like settle down.
This or somebody posted it.
No, people posted it.
So I'm jacking. But it might have just been a bad angle. Like, what if this all didn't happen?
Rihanna's not gonna let herself get this bloated, mama. There's no way.
All right.
I mean,
it'd be like that, I know, but it's Rihanna. Like, and back to back, because she also looked like this in the blue dress.
Yeah, yes. You're right about that. I did see other pictures with different angles.
I mean, I guess moving on from Rihanna, but still speaking about children, because they've been making the headlines. Have y'all heard about what happened in Mississippi over the summer?
Not actually. Could you refresh me and the other listeners?
Yes, I got you. So on August 7th, ICE agents raided 7 different food processing plants in Mississippi. So that morning, 680 undocumented workers were arrested, and this wasn't surprising because the plants were notorious for employing undocumented workers. So for those who don't know, August 7th was actually also the first day of school for children in Mississippi. The children of workers who were detained that morning had nowhere to go when school ended. And the children who were lucky enough to have other family members in the area were released to their custody. So a local gym owner was kind enough to allow the children who had no one to go home to stay in the gym until their parents were released. So these children really had to rely on the kindness of strangers to watch over them and provide them with food and drinks.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's
actually
your
life.
Disgusting. One of the articles that I read actually said that most of the children were too emotional to even eat. So have you guys seen this video of the little girl in Mississippi?
It's they were interviewing her, right?
Yeah.
And she was like crying.
Yes.
Is this recent or is this like a little older?
It's August 7th.
So
like from the raids.
Oh, I think I saw that one. Was it like it's like a little girl crying outside?
Yeah. Oh, I think you know what? This video was also, I believe, the one where the newscaster was asking her to give her last name. So that was crazy because it's like somebody, I think an adult was like, don't give them that, and it's like they want her whole information, whether you know it's not malintent, like the way it can be used is like
malicious.
Yeah.
Right. No, so that video was actually being shared. Like once it started coming out, it was being shared on Instagram, and I saw the cover and I saw this little girl crying, and I was like, do I really want to watch this?
Yeah.
Do I really want to watch this? Like it took me a good, I want to say week, maybe week and a half to even click on it.
Yeah.
So like, how did you guys feel? Like, what did you think when you saw the video?
I just think it's like every video is, it sucks, but I'm like, I feel like it's getting to the point where like these videos are like all over social media. Like, it's like I feel like every other week it's like a different kid crying, or like, you know, kind of like getting their parents getting taken away from them, or even like a parent crying because they like their kids got taken away. And it's just like, I don't know, I just think it's like embarrassing of like our country, and like just like, yeah, I'm like lost for words.
I think of like what you just said of like not wanting to click on it, like knowing what it's gonna be, also like creates a weird dynamic for yourself, or like, or even for people who call themselves activists, right? Because it's like I want to watch this, I need to watch, or like I need to watch this, but do I actually want to watch it? You know, is this something that, like, how is this gonna make me feel right now? And so it makes you think, like, you know, like, where does my mental health come, but also like where does me like supporting and making sure people know about it come in? And then what Jorwell said on the contrary, it's like it's all over the media, so it's almost like you become numb to it. Like you see it and it's like, oh yeah, that's reg. Not like I need to do something, this is crazy, but like, oh yeah, this is another Tuesday, another Wednesday.
Like another ice raid.
I feel upset right now, and then, you know, nothing.
So honestly, I feel like the bigger issue is that this little girl was even recorded and put on the news in the first place. She just experienced something so traumatic, and her raw emotions are being exploited for views. So do you guys believe that the news broadcaster was just looking for views, or genuinely wanted to share the little girl's story?
I think the reality of like media is like, is like the exploiting of like, I'd say like emotion and like trauma and like just like, I guess like super important events or whatever, just to like kind of like to increase interactions with like their specific like news site and stuff. So I definitely think a big aspect of it was looking for views, but I do think it could come with like the desire to share the story. But it also depends, right? Because like even the more like progressive quote unquote news sites such as like CNN isn't really that progressive. So it's like they still have like certain like, I guess like intentions or like underlying purposes.
And I was reading about in my prisoner rights class, like about media during slavery, like trying to depict black men as like aggressive, and like that can further the surveillance, right, of like black communities, black women, black men, and like that's something that continues like today. So it's like, it's crazy to see that media always has like a further agenda or purpose that goes beyond like, oh, I'm trying to tell you the story or the truth, but no, you're just like furthering your own political agenda.
So do you feel like there would have been a right way to share the girl's story in a way that didn't feel like she was being exploited?
I'd say maybe not. Like, I guess like a way to like not exploit it would be to like do it in an article version or like a radio, and like not have to like not like show her face and like her name, because I feel like if the story is what's important, like whoever it happened to shouldn't really matter. And I don't know if I'm really saying that in the best way. But I feel like in a big way, I think like seeing like the little girl, like you said, like this is literally like the day it happened, right? Like, so like that's insane. Like the fact that she was even like strong enough, because she was what, 7 years old, like the fact that she was even strong enough to like speak about what just happened like on live television, like is ridiculously brave. Like I can't even imagine that.
All right, so I just want to play devil's advocate just a little bit. So do you think people are really gonna want to go out of their way to read an article about a little girl, like as opposed to a video, which is like capturing it appeals to your ethos? You get what I'm saying?
I think maybe if she like chose to share it herself, that probably is like the only way that it could have been like truly her story, or like the way, come across the way that she wanted to, like. And that's so important, like even just having access to telling your own narrative, like is something we often don't get to do, or often.
Especially as a 7-year-old girl, like you can only imagine like also like how the questions were even swayed to like kind of like manipulate her response, you know.
Honestly, like watching it, she was just like it felt like she was gasping for air. Like that's how the whole thing felt. Like she was just crying. She was begging for her dad back, saying he's not a criminal, he didn't do anything, please take my daddy out of jail. Like it was just, it didn't feel like it felt just like a World Star video, like for lack of a better word. Like you have this crazy thing happening, it's just like, I'm gonna put that and share it.
Yeah, which I think is important, right? Like I do think videos do have that like appeal to an audience, and I think especially to people that like aren't really big on like you said, like some people don't even read newspapers, but they watch like 10-second clips kind of like to update on, to get a little update on the news.
Literally.
Yeah, so it's like I can definitely see the convenience behind it. However, like I do think in a way like that convenience, like someone does it's like the opposite of benefit, I guess. Like it's like
detrimental.
Yeah, someone like it is detrimental to someone in essence.
Right. So on last week's show, when we spoke about the New Zealand shooting, I had asked Jamal and Kiara how they felt about social media's role in sharing violent/triggering content and whether it was beneficial or not. So do you feel like sharing the video of this little girl is beneficial, or is it just something that maybe we didn't have to see?
For me personally, I think it depends on like what the intention of sharing is, right? Because I think sharing, like social media in general, like all it really does essentially is like further spreads awareness of an issue or like of the message that you're trying to convey, and like maybe it eases the ability to like organize, right? But if you're not using it to organize, if you're just kind of like reposting things, that's mostly just like spreading awareness. And it's like posting is important, but I think some things that go mainstream, it's just like just posting it again doesn't really do too much to like, I feel like, help the people, you know?
Sometimes I appreciate when people add like a little caption, like their own 2 cents, because it's like, then I know that they didn't just watch this and just repost it. Like they actually thought about it, they broke it down, they want to share this because they feel a certain attachment to it, as opposed to just like, oh, this looks cool, retweet.
I agree. What do you think?
It's so interesting. No, yeah, I agree. Like it's also interesting because like sometimes I feel like I have no words, and sometimes the words come out and it's like, it's so hard.
And sometimes, honestly, I don't even want to share it because it's like, I know how this made me feel. Like, honestly, after I watched the video, I broke down crying because it was just so upsetting. Like, I have sisters who are 8 and 9 years old. Like, I can't even imagine them being put on TV like that, crying, like someone exploiting them like that. And this little girl literally has no one. So, like, my little sisters, at least I know they have family, they have me, if anything. Yeah. But she literally had no one.
And it's like, it's not only these videos, but there's also pictures of kids in detention centers along the border,
yeah,
right? Crying and like
on the fence.
Yeah, so have you seen those? Do you think it's like the same, like as a video? Like, does it have the same effect?
I think, and it's to a certain extent, from my opinion, I feel like the concept of immigration currently, or the climate of immigration in this country, I feel like you can't be ignorant to it. Like I feel like at this point, like you cannot say you didn't know this is real, because like I feel like I think we've been smacked in the face with this information like consistently, right, through this whole presidential term. But I just think like what I feel like now that we're talking about it, I'm thinking like what is essentially the point of oversharing these videos, right? Like what's the point of sharing so much if like there's no course of action being taken to like address it, or at least like we're not promoting the courses of action to like further help these like situations, especially within like the detention centers and concentration camps.
And at one point, it's what you associate communities with. So it's like, I know for me, example, I get really upset like when white people are like, oh, are you Latinos, this and that, like, you know, and like they make over generalizations about our community, but like this is what the media is portraying us as. This is like what you know we are labeled as. Like they expect us to live in these conditions and be like, right, undocumented, all these things. So it's such a hard balance, because it's like I never want to understand like the ignorant white kid in my class, but it's like this is literally what that kid is seeing every day. So even like how the media manipulates us to believe that is like the reality. I don't know.
And I think kind of no, but I think also adding on to you, like when you don't have that like those individuals around you to kind of like negate that not even check you, right, but even just like, because not everyone like, you know, like not everyone really is vocal about their opinion, but even just like that, like negate that stereotype that you have, right? So like if you're in like let's say like a super like white conservative town in Long Island, and like you're like literally the only Latinx people in your community are I guess like perpetuate the stereotype that you see, like you're like, oh yeah, typical, but it's like you don't have those people around, just kind of like, oh wait, there's different types of people, like these
or even like what's happening and like what you're seeing, the reality isn't valid, because like the pictures have been demonstrating these like awful, horrendous living conditions, right? There have been reports that people are being kept in cold cells with nothing but tinfoil, and you see that in the pictures as well. And they're also experiencing malnutrition from not being fed properly by ICE agents. And one article actually told a story about how a kid had spilled their soup in one of the detention centers, and the officer told them that they weren't going to get any more food, right? And that they had to lick the soup off the floor.
It is so upsetting to think that people are enduring conditions like that, especially as a result of trying to improve your quality of life. So international law allows people to seek asylum in the United States due to persecution or well-founded fear of persecution because of their race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or their political opinion.
Put us on.
So oftentimes people come to the U.S. as a means of protection and then end up in facilities like the detention centers in Texas. So Jorwell and Natalie have actually volunteered at one of the largest mother and child detention centers in Dilley, Texas. Would you guys be able to share how that experience was with us?
I feel like that it was just such a like a life-changing experience, like for me especially, right? Like I feel like my like perspective of the world was very like, I think like self-focused, I think before that, and I feel like after that we were only there for a week, or like I think 5 days to be exact, right?
Yeah.
5 days. 5 days, and I think those 5 days were probably like 5 days that I will never forget, like for my life. Like we worked I think it was like what 7 to 8 a.m. to like 5, I think, I don't know, it was like
exactly,
it was pretty long days, and it was we essentially were interpreters and translators for attorneys in the legal clinic within the detention center. I think for me what was most like, I feel like just like shocking was seeing like the strength of the mothers like dealing with their children, right? Because these mothers are dealing with issues right now with they're telling us about their trauma, they're talking to us about all the issues they had back home, and
like
how
they sometimes have never talked about before.
Yeah, and like even like and like just so many like different, like I feel like they're breaking down so many layers of themselves and like breaking down so many walls that they like are so used to putting up, and then to do that but then still have that strength to like kind of like be strong for your kid because your 5-year-old is right here next to you crying. So I think just seeing that like resilience within them really did push me, and I think pushed us and like motivated us to kind of like persevere through it and like be also that like strength for them, for the mothers, because like the mothers really didn't have much to rely on. Nat, you wanna?
Oh, that's a fact. I had no idea about how like literal migration worked, and like even what asylum was really. And so I feel like learning everything was like so shocking, and learning all the things that people don't consider asylum, or that the U.S. doesn't consider asylum, like domestic violence, right? Economic conditions, like those are things that like you wouldn't be able to live a healthy life like enduring, but the U.S. expects people to do that. And yeah, I think the kids, like how the mothers were with their children was just like something that kept you forward. And also something we always talk about is that when we walked in with like puppy eyes. We're like so sad. We're like, what is happening? Like you see people like in the
like seeing like generic like Walmart crew necks and like sweatpants.
Sweats, right? Everyone is wearing that. The little kids. So you walk in and they're like, the women are sitting there and you're just like sad. You're like giving puppy eyes, and we're like, all right, hold on. Our role here isn't pity, isn't remorse. Our role here is to like act as people that like know what they're doing, obviously, but also like strength, you know, and being some of the only like Latinos there, it creates like a different bond with the woman where it's, you know, I'm gonna talk to you about like what you have to do, but also you can tell me a joke, right? And I'm gonna get it. So I think those are like some of the more like heartwarming moments where it made me like thankful that I could like be there in that space.
I think it also like helped, like it helped us not both do our job, but also just like, I guess like empathize so much more with like the women, because like they would say, they just reminded me so much of like my mom, my sister. Like I remember I was talking to one of our clients, and she was literally my sister's age, and like when she told me her age and like just like I heard what happened, like it was so hard for me to like not cry in front of her, right? Just because like it just felt so like close to home, because I was like, yo, if this is this woman in like in El Salvador, like imagine if my sister was born, if we were born in DR or like in El Salvador, you know, like what the conditions could have been, how the conditions could have been different, like, you know.
And y'all could definitely hit our line if you want to hear more. We'll definitely be talking about that. Probably more in the lounge. So I'm not sure if y'all or any listeners have heard, but this past July, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of a new policy that Trump wanted to apply to asylum seekers. So it makes it so that asylum can only be applied for after an attempt to seek asylum in a different country. So if someone who's trying to seek asylum in the U.S. didn't seek asylum elsewhere first, then they're rendered ineligible for asylum and then processed for rapid deportation. So you basically have to be elsewhere. So what do y'all think? How do y'all think this is going to affect migration? Like, did y'all know about this?
I honestly didn't know about this, but I feel like this goes, so like the only example I could think of to like try to formulate what I'm trying to say is like for abortion, right? If you make abortion legal, people are gonna just they're not gonna stop having abortions. They're just gonna stop having them legally. You get what I'm saying? So I just feel like it's already dangerous crossing the border legally. Like it's just people are gonna need to go to greater lengths to like get what they need, because these people need to survive. Like they're fighting for their survival. They can't live where they are right now. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think a big factor that people like that are against, I guess, this whole immigration wave, that don't consider, right, is like no one's coming here because they're not leaving their 5-star condo, and like they're not leaving their like like their like 2019 Honda Accord Beachview apartment like to come to the U.S. right? Like they're in unlivable conditions. These women go through trauma every day. Like they're assaulted. Or like
violence
people,
they don't even know is violence.
Yeah, like there were even times, right, where it's just kind of going back to the when me and Natalie were in Dili, how we'd hear like the women they would tell us stories, but then the details of the story would be further trauma that they wouldn't even really think was like traumatic or like an issue or even violence. Yeah.
And it's just crazy. Somebody is risking their life, their children's lives, their older family members' lives, right, to enter a country. Like it doesn't add up, like why somebody would do that. But also there's this author I've talked about that blames, right, that says that like the US creates the conditions for migrants' deaths, right? You're setting up ICE and agents in strategic places, right, where people are not going to cross because they're going to be like, oh, La Migra's right there, right? So they're going to go through conditions like the desert, right? So it kind of like pushes people towards the conditions that are most likely going to lead to their death. And right, when we hear of it, we think like, oh, that's someone's fault, but it's like the U.S. is forcing someone to enter.
And what's crazy is that this policy is already on top of a tedious and expensive process that is seeking asylum in the first place, right? So a brief breakdown of what the process looks for an asylum seeker is: it starts with an extremely dense application made up of 12 questions and 4 pages of instructions, then 2 interviews to determine whether the reason for asylum is valid, and then they have to wait for a decision to be made, all of which takes place in 6 months. However, the Trump administration has put a lot of pressure on judges to speed up this process to get as many immigrants deported in a short time frame as possible. Since Trump has started implementing his migrant deterring programs, more than 42,000 individuals seeking asylum from Mexico have been deported just this year.
Wow.
So Trump has always brought up immigration as one of his main focus points. Do you believe it's an actual issue in the U.S., or is Trump executing his own agenda against immigrants?
I feel like at this point it's pretty obvious that it's Trump pushing his own bias. Like he's brave enough to say things like all Mexicans are rapists, right? So it's clear that he has like a bias against Latinx individuals, Hispanic individuals,
Anyone that's not white.
minorities
In the
general.
1950s, we used to have Mexican workers were able to come on a temporary visa to work, right? Like literally cross the border wasn't an issue. So it's crazy how like it's gotten more strict over time. And if anything, this shows like U.S. imperialism, U.S. entering other countries is messing up their economies, creating worse conditions, forcing them out. So like low-key always comes and points back at the U.S. corporations.
And it comes full circle. Like the U.S. has, like Natalie said, like they've ruined the economic conditions of the country, so people have to migrate out of the country to
the
in pursuit of a better life, and they come to the U.S. and then you're trying to deport them for leaving an issue that you created.
Right.
It just don't add up.
It does not. So we have been speaking a lot about some heavy topics for this week and last week's show. So to end tonight's show on a lighter note, I would like to share a quote with you all. We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. And this was said by Maya Angelou. That is the energy that I hope we can all keep with us for the rest of the week and for weeks to come, because I know I have been cooked. I don't know about y'all.
No.
I actually haven't. I can't complain about this semester.
Okay.
Well, that's
just
nice.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, as many people know, LASU's celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. We have a lot of exciting programming and events in store. If you want, you can follow us on Instagram at LASU_1969, just to make sure you don't miss anything.
Also, if you enjoyed today's show and want to join us on air as a special host, please email lasu@binghamtonsa.org or find us on Be Engaged and we can make that dream a reality.
Sin miedo.
And don't forget that LASU also hosts general body meetings every Thursday in UUW 310 at 8 p.m. This week, we're discussing the recent Ricky Renuncia protest in Puerto Rico and the deeper political issues that the island has been in for decades. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, and I hope to see you all there.
I definitely hope to see you all there because I will be
You're hosting?
running it.
Okay,
Yes, very
okay.
excited. Me and the president Jamal, he was on the show last week. So I just want to say thank you to all of our new and old listeners for tuning in today. Also, a very special thank you to our engineer, Ferdinand Montalvo, for joining us this year once again. You've been listening to WHRW-FM with Amiya,
Natalie,
Jorwell.
and remember,
En la unión está la fuerza. That was good.